Rural Heritage on RFD TV is brought to you by Rural Heritage Magazine, a bi-monthly magazine featuring articles about farming and logging with draft animal power, small-scale diversified family farming and homesteading, and other aspects of our rich rural heritage. Rural Heritage Magazine, borrowing from yesterday to do the work of today. For subscription information, please call 319-362-3027 or order online at www.ruralheritage.com. Hi, I'm Joe Mishka, welcoming you to another episode of Rural Heritage TV. We were at a horse sale at the Kalona sale barn last year when a friend asked if we'd ever been to the Kalona Historical Village a few blocks away. We hadn't, so when we left the sale, we stopped at the museum and are very glad we did. It's a real treasure tucked away in a small east central Iowa town. What began as a community effort to save the town's railroad depot in 1969 has grown to include a dozen historical buildings, spacious and well-appointed welcome center, gift shop and quilt museum, as well as a large and well-provisioned Amish museum. We came back several times to visit them all, but only have time today to show you a sampling. Upcoming episodes will focus on what is probably the second largest quilt collection in the country, as well as the Amish Museum. But today we look at the buildings that were saved, moved to the site, and restored there. There's a lot to see, so let's get started. Managing Director of the museum, Nancy Roth, starts us on the tour.
So the first building we're going to go to is nicknamed Grout Church. It was South Sharon Center United Methodist Church. It was built in 1867. Sharon Center is located little northeast of town. And actually when this group of people got together, they actually didn't even have a church house. They met in their homes. And then once their congregation got big enough, they built this church. It's just got great ambiance in here. The original pews, the original tin ceiling. We do have, from time to time, a few weddings in here. So their congregation basically deteriorated and they closed their doors, but they also didn't want to see the church just sit out in the countryside and deteriorate. And then families that used to attend the church, that's where all of the dated history came from. They found some diaries, and so lots and lots of lineage that goes back to some of the original ancestors and stuff that founded the church. I think that is a cool, under the 1889 to 1909, I think that's a really cool picture because it's just them, congregating outside the front of the church.
Right.
Kind of a neat wagons and carriages.
Right.
So this is called Wall House, but it was originally a stagecoach stop hotel out in the Joetown area. So Joetown is what we refer to as one of our pioneer communities. So it's a little northwest of Kalona. So we've kind of got it decorated in the 30s and 40s era. We've kind of got all of our buildings set up to be self-guided. Mm-hmm. So we've got different barriers to kind of keep people out, but as far as I know, so it's called Wall House. Glenn and Fern Wall purchased this house in the early 40s, and they had it moved from the Joetown area into this location where it's been since then. As far as I know, it's the original wallpaper, all the original woodwork. I know the kitchen they painted, but neat concept of the dining room. You've got a front entrance where you can shut either set of doors. Mm-hmm. there are pocket doors that you can slide to shut off the parlor area over there. So back in the day, depending on if you were having guests over or if it was like a wake, you would meet in the parlor area, even if it was an evening of inviting friends and neighbors over, and then they would do music and games over there, and then you would come into more of the formal dining room area. I guess I see this as a little bit more upper class than a basic old farmhouse.
Right.
If you look at the picture behind you on the wall, it shows on the left there was a different type of porch.
Right.
Where we opened it up and added the ramp on and things like that. But that front porch is pretty much exactly like that. Now it's white in the picture, and of course we have it more painted more Victorian style. When they did move this house in, there was no plumbing in it, so they did plumb the house. We have this kind of as a music room. This actually was the bathroom once Glenn and Fern, put full water in it, but we kind of turned it into a canning closet.
Sure.
To represent an earlier time.
If you enjoy seeing how our ancestors lived during America's rule yesterday, you're going to love looking at these books. Volume 1 is fieldwork showing horses and vintage tractors preparing seed beds, planting, cultivating, and harvesting the crop. Volume 2 shows the work being done in the barn and farmyard, feeding and watering the livestock, getting the crop into the barn, milking the cows, shearing the sheep, and collecting the eggs. In Volume 3, we go inside the home to see the family in the kitchen canning vegetables, in the parlor listening to the radio, and in the dining room for family supper. We also head into town to shop at the general store or visit on the town square on Saturday night. Each book has over 140 large format pages. They sell for $24.95 each, or you can buy 2 for $44.95, or all 3 for $54.95 plus shipping. Call 1-877-647-2452 to order. That's 1-877-647-2452.
This building it's an older building. We refer to this as our wash house, but what I'm going to turn it into is a wash house summer kitchen. A lot of people don't know what summer kitchen means. So, of course, you didn't have heat and air in your main houses, so a lot of times they would come out into their summer kitchen to do all their canning and any major cooking that would really heat up the main house. So right now we've got some really cool washing machines. We are now creating a brand new story to tell. So what you're looking at right now talks about our pioneer communities. So pre-Kalona, it's Richmond, Joetown, Byerton. Byerton, actually, you don't even know that it's out in the country because there's absolutely nothing left of it, but it used to be a major stagecoach path leading to the Kalona area. So we collaborated with different people from every community. Everybody came together and brought their facts about their little towns. And it's a really tedious job taking a bunch of information and cutting it down to stuff that is readable, that people are going to keep their interest and, piecing it all together.
Yeah, infographics.
Now, what a lot of people don't realize too is that the Meskwaki Indians were some of the first settlers here. And that is definitely one thing we never told here at the museum, even in the old museum. We didn't talk about what happened in this area prior to Kalona actually starting. So that's kind of the significance of this whole exhibit. The arrowheads or projectile points that are down in this case, those are ones that were found in the area. I know there's a lot of different farms in the area that they can still go out in their fields and dig up arrowheads. Of course, we're right along the English River, and you still find them down there too. So this was kind of the beginning thoughts of what we wanted this building to be like. What you're seeing in the middle here, these are hay trolleys. We have a local gentleman that collects hay trolleys, And kind of the whole beginning of this hay trolley exhibit was this piece over in this case. He came in one day and he pointed out this piece right here to us, and it was out in our farm implement building. It was up on a riser. He's like, well, can I see that piece? That's a hay trolley. And of course, we had no idea what a hay trolley was. And that is an original hay trolley. He was so thrilled when he saw that. He did, the metal piece was not on there. He did put that on. He did make a copy of that hay trolley for himself, but that goes back to 1873. So he brought in and kind of created a hay trolley exhibit, including this barn structure, to show the purpose of what hay trolleys served back in the earlier days. Instead of the men doing all the work, the hay trolleys kind of took over for that. Now, kind of this wall here, we talk about when Kalona actually got the acceptance of the railway. That's where we began. And so we're really going to talk about the purpose of the railway, how it made our town flourish, and that's where you go, which I forgot my keys. So this whole room over into here, we're going to continue talking about the railway and what the railway brought to this town. And earlier on, it was the only way in and out was by train. There were little paths and different things like that. Now, we just finished this exhibit in here, and it talks about transportation and communication. So you're earlier on cars. The newspaper, of course, was one of the major significant communications for people outside of the area. The little miniature version buildings, the one towards the back that shows the wood structures, and then it talks about fires. You know, you get a fire in one building, and of course it would wipe out the entire block. And I've kind of got a little bit of connection with this whole business part because the Edmondson store was my ancestors, which was started back when Kalona started in 1879. So we lost our business in 1906, and then of course built back to, then they started doing the brick and mortar buildings from then on. And a lot of those original buildings are ones that are still down in the downtown area today. So we do, and then we do talk about changes in upgrading to telephones.
You've seen our America's Rural Yesterday 3-book set covering life on the farm in the early 1900s. We're excited to bring you a 4th edition to the series, Early Tractors, featuring more than 250 photos of early American tractors like Alice Chalmers, Oliver, John Deere, Farmall, Minneapolis Moline, and lots more. Most of the photos are of new or almost new tractors back in the day, showing exactly how they were configured when they came out of the factory. Tractor collectors, history buffs, and folks simply wanting to reminisce about farm life in America's Rural Yesterday will love to have this book. It sells for $24.95 plus shipping. If you buy more than one book in the series, the price per book goes down all the way to $69.95 for all 4 books. To order, call toll-free 877-647-2452 or visit www.mishka.com. That's 1-877-647-2452.
So this log cabin goes back to 1842, and it was found in the back part of a field. And so it got moved in. Now I have seen some old pictures of it, and it's probably amazing that it managed to even get here without completely falling apart. Because I know they had to do some kind of patching of it. But it's, I have to shut the door so it doesn't glare. But it represents what a one-room log cabin used to be. Surprisingly, you do go through the back left door. It does go up to a loft that's upstairs. And there's actually a lot of space up there. This is kind of one of my projects before we open for season next year. I kind of want to rearrange things and give it a little different look.
It's a lot of great artifacts.
Yeah.
It really is.
Lot, and if anything too, we have a lot of school tours that come in. Kids have no idea what good night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite. They have no concept that these kids and people literally used to sleep on rope beds. The bugs biting would be because they were sleeping on hay mattresses or something, but you had to always tighten up the ropes on the bed so you didn't end up on the floor. So, you got different stories like that are always fun to tell everybody. This is called Summit School, or what we call it is Straw College, because back in the day they actually used to put straw bales around the bottom of the schoolhouse to keep it warm in the wintertime. And it dates 1850. Now, there's a lot of people that come to our village and they think that this is all about the Amish here, which it's not.
Right.
But what we do try to explain is that this schoolhouse is going to be pretty much similar to all of the one-room schoolhouses that we have out in the country. We have 10 one-room schoolhouses. When Kalona High School opened up, the Kalona School District here in town, then of course they walked away from the one-room schoolhouses out in the countryside. And actually, there were some Amish that did attend the school, and they were supposed to kind of follow along. Well, then that's kind of back when the Amish wanted to actually start their own schoolhouses. So they did work with the state of Iowa. The Amish kids do have to take tests. They do only go through the 8th grade, but they basically took over all the one-room schoolhouses out in the country. So this is going to be something really similar to what they attend out there. So this was moved in here in 1972, I do believe. Now the post office, so Richmond is another one of our pioneer communities that existed before Kalona. So when they basically closed the Richmond post office, so it started in 1850. Richmond was platted in 1840. So this was moved in 1989. But same thing, Richmond's always been considered a part of Kalona. So pretty simple, because actually back in the early days too, most post offices were in the general store, and it was just a set of boxes, where Richmond actually had a building. But you got the benches in here. It was a community area to come to where they could sit and talk and see what was going on and the gossip and stuff. So sure. I remember as a kid, we had an Amish country store just up the road, and to me this is pretty similar. It was kind of a one-room store. This dates about 1890s, and but just carried pretty much all your basic supplies, whatever you needed. I had an Amish babysitter growing up. Both my parents worked outside of the home, and her and I remember many times just walking up the road to the little general store just up the road from my folks' house, and they carried a lot more of kind of your fabric and notions and stuff. But otherwise, the general store was the main thing in every community. It's where everybody needed to get their groceries or supplies.
Stuff they couldn't grow or preserve themselves.
Exactly. So the train depot is actually kind of our core here. It's why we exist.
Because it was the first thing?
Yes. Well, Glenn moved the house in the 40s, but yes, this is what started the whole village and museum that we have here. Because every town had a train depot, but then after they quit using the tracks and the depots, they just sat. You know, a lot of the depot, well, this depot was in pretty rough shape. According to a lot of the people that were a part of it moving, they said that they shoveled a lot of pigeon poop out of this because it had sat down on A Avenue for so many years empty. So that, yeah, they started going through all the towns and ripping up the tracks, and they were going to rip the train depot down. So you had a couple groups that got together to save it. And so that's where Glenn came into the picture, and he owned this chunk of property and he donated it so the depot could get relocated. And then shortly after, they built that original visitor center. So that's one key. Like I said, with the new building, we actually are going to work on a project with the depot shortly after we're done over there, just talking about how the depot was such an importance to the community.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool picture.
It really is. It really is.
You know, same thing. It was a gathering place. It's where all the goods came into town. It's how the livestock came and went.
Do you think that was a political stop? Is there anybody who know what that was?
They did have, yeah.
Or those flags?
And they had like celebrations and stuff too.
Sure,
So,
sure.
and it seemed like a lot of them congregated down by the tracks.
That's a very cool picture.
Now we do incorporate the depot in with a lot of, yeah, you can kind of see even in that picture how it was pretty rough looking. With the new project, we're kind of just in real early stages of conversation. We'd like to build a platform back around it again and make it so the baggage area is back there and it's not really used, and
Sure.
but we, you know, if we could incorporate that in and make it so we could open it up. And but we do actually use this the depot for a lot of school groups. So this telegraph machine here, it does actually work. We have a gentleman on our board that when he went into the military, that is what he did, is he transcribed messages. And so he loves coming out here with school groups. He did it during Fall Festival. Because then that little wood box with that little hinge, it actually prints out the tape. So he'll show the kids how they, it prints out. But he'll kind of give them an idea of what all of the shorts and long clicks mean. So that's kind of a part of our transportation tour that we do. So yeah, but we hope to kind of regroup this building too and come up with a better informative. I don't know, we're kind of on a how does everything tell a story now, since we started the new exhibit. How does it tell a story? So anything that we want to accept as a donation, that's kind of key on our list.
Criteria.
Is what purpose does this serve? Is it a part of our community? What story does it tell or can it tell?
Yeah, it's not, you don't want something that's just because it's interesting necessarily, just because it's different.
Sometimes you still have...
Like I said, there's a lot to see here, and we'll be bringing you more stories from the Kalona Historical Village Museum in the weeks to come. This program is available for purchase. To order your copy, please call 319-362-3027 or visit www.ruralheritage.com. Rural Heritage is a bi-monthly magazine dedicated to draft animal farming and logging, as well as other aspects of our rich rural heritage. It is published by Mishka Press, which also offers a complete line of back-to-the-land books, DVDs, and calendars. Call or write for a catalog or subscription information, or visit our website at www.ruralheritage.com.